says that they will do this, they will do that, and there's a quasi job description in there, and it says what the duties and responsibilities. But who's going to evaluate that? I mean, who evaluates the SRO at the high school now?
Well, it's a city employee, and so, it's a city employee, and, their evaluator, then their supervisor, let's say, is the City of Douglas chief. Of course, there is collaboration. Up to now, we haven't had, any issues that I'm aware of that have, have needed to be addressed for any disciplinary action.
But the thing that always gets my attention is they're placed
At
in
the
our
schools.
institution, and the supervisor, whoever it is at the city, we'll say in this case, ESI is the one that the district had a problem with. And the district wasn't happy, and you had a little bit of a discussion with ESI, and they weren't that amenable. They were saying, well, let us look into it, you know, and they were working for you. But you didn't have any say-so on the evaluation. To me, it's just mind-boggling that you're gonna have somebody working for, let's say in this case, a police officer at one of the middle schools. There's nobody that's going to actually do the formal evaluation of that person from the outside entity, the one that's placing them there, their personnel office. And they're working directly with our principals. Our principals should have plenty to say about that performance. They're the ones that deal with them all day long. I mean, they become a quasi-employee. So I think that's something you need to discuss with them, that whenever they do their evaluation, however they do it. But first of all, what's the instrument gonna be? What's the criteria? But the principals should have 95% say-so, and they should have 5% regarding what their uniform standards are about a police officer, those things. But their performances, what they're doing on campus, they're not even gonna be aware of. So anyway, that's one of my concerns. Members of the board, do you have any questions or comments regarding this IGA? Mr. Smith?
Just from speaking from the law enforcement background, I know that whenever we had our agents assigned through IGAs or stuff like that, the supervisors that were in charge of those individual agents, was incumbent upon them to make sure wherever they were assigned that they contacted and got some type of feedback for the appraisal like you were talking about there. So, you know, I don't know for certain, but I would, you know, think that maybe, you know, the police department has something, whoever is that agent or officer is assigned to within the department, he should be checking at least with principal or something on getting some type of evaluation from them to be able to be included into that performance appraisal.
Mr. Lindorm?
Yeah, that, I was gonna say that, they are also assigned here, but since the district is paying half, then it would be, more prudent, I think, to have the
A joint
principal,
effort.
yeah, you know,
Okay.
half and half the evaluation or something like that.
And I'm sure, I mean, and I know that it's not outlined specifically here in the, you know, in the IGA, but we can certainly, you know, we have a good relationship with our current IGA, and can certainly discuss this with the chief.
Okay.
Okay, anything else other than that one aspect?
Mrs. Salchow has a question.
Go ahead.
And let me know if you can't hear me. Currently, does the administration from the high school have any input into their IGA's
No.
evaluation through the city?
Not that I'm aware of, Mrs. Salchow. Again, nothing has ever come to my attention about, you know, the evaluation of our current SRO officer. But they are, you know, under the employment of the city. They're city employees. Yes, we are paying half of their salary, but not to my knowledge, at this point.
Okay. Have we ever had any concerns?
Not directly to me that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
But I will address this with Chief, because now we're gonna have, if they are able to hire 2 SSOs, that's gonna be, 3 police officers working in our buildings. And so definitely something that we can address with him.
It's
Yeah.
not fair to the
Uh-huh.
principal.
Yeah,
The principal has no authority. It says, well, they work for the city, the IGA says I can't touch them, and I mean, principal sees them come in late. They're doing things that the principal
Yeah.
doesn't think is up to standard or whatever, and they have no authority whatsoever to say anything to them, especially where it really hurts. Now, there is one recital in there that does talk about
Yeah, right.
if there's a problem with the
Problem.
officer.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say as determined by who, it just says if there's a problem, that then the district has a say-so as to whether they should be kept or replaced, but that's not good enough as far as I'm concerned, okay?
okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other?
One
questions?
more question. Has this IGA been vetted by our attorneys?
No, well, we sent it to Chief, and I believe your people already have it, and I think it's going to be presented tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think that our attorney
Yeah, no, I
should take
think,
a
I
look at
think
it
they
too.
did, Mr. Lindemann, because we've
Oh,
been
they
working
did.
back and forth,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Any further discussion? Denise? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item K, discussion action on the approval of the intergovernmental agreement between Cochise Cochise Technology District, Douglas Unified School District number 27, for the provision of career technical education courses. Ms. Salniego.
This IGA is an existing IGA, so it's just a renewal. It was about to expire, and this is to allow us to work with Cochise College.
Mr. Lindemann, get a motion?
I move to approve.
Second?
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Discussion, board members. That's just, that's perfunctory.
yes.
It's always been there like that. Any further discussion, any other comments you want to make regarding that? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item L, discussion action on the approval of the student placement agreement between NAU and Douglas Unified School District number 27. Ms. Samaniego.
Okay, again, this is a renewal, and this allows NAU to place student teachers in our buildings.
Mr. Lindemann,
I move to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith, discussion, board members. Any further explanation? Roll call.
Will we, excuse me,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. I was just gonna wonder, how many students we think are gonna student teach, or do we know the numbers yet
One for sure.
From
One-
NAU?
From NAU,
for second semester?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith, any questions, comments?
No.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Selcha?
yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Mr. Burry?
Yes, item M, discussion, action on the approval of the governing board resolution ordering that the Douglas Unified School District number 27 hold an election on August the 6th, 2024, to request authorization to sell or lease district property commonly known as the A Avenue School property. Ms. Samaniego.
So as you know, we had this discussion, and the board did vote on continuing with our plans to sell A Avenue. So the next step is for the board to adopt this resolution. Once the board adopts this resolution, we send it up to county, which will then allow us to move in the process of continuing with our election plans for August. And I did inform the board that we will not have to reimburse the school facilities board for any portion of the building of the MPR once we sell the building. So that is to our great advantage.
Mr. Lindemann,
I move to approve item M.
is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith, any further discussion?
I just wanted to ask, so we don't have a lien on that, or it's, at any way, we don't own it, only for that, all right.
Well, it's gonna be all profit, I mean, for whatever
Right.
it is. And, anyway, Mr.
I have
Smith.
a couple of questions. One, are we going to have to pay in any way because this is having a special election in regards, instead of it being tied in with the national election that's going to take place later that year, let's say November.
So there will be something we have to pay, but it's not considered, it is not as great as having the election, let's say, I think there was a plan for maybe this year or in March, where it was gonna be a mail-in ballot only, and so at the advice of the county officials said it's gonna be more expensive, and most likely people will not vote because it's a mail-in ballot, so it may defeat the whole purpose. So moving it to August, the fee will be it will be a lot less. So there is a fee to pay to have anything on the ballot.
And is it less than,
Oh,
say,
yeah.
if they had it tied in with
Yes.
the November elections that's going to be scheduled
Not
in
much less,
24?
because this is the primary, right, Alma?
Primary.
It's the primary election, so that's what the county, we could either have it on the August or the November if we chose to, so.
And I know I'm jumping the gun on this, but if it is approved by the voters, do we already have plans for for the monies that we're going to be getting? Is it
No
encumbered in any way?
plans, no specific plans, because I need to find out where the money is gonna be deposited, what kind of fund. I'm hoping that it's gonna be on the 500s, which is gonna be unrestricted, and we can use it however we want.
That was my question. Is it going to be limited?
That's why we need to find out first, once the sale goes, and then we need to determine what fund we're gonna be depositing that money.
And do we determine that, or who does that?
No, there's gotta be one that it's, specific, like, for instance, when we sell assets that the district have, like we put it for auction, we put it on the 500 funds, which is sale, so again, I'm just waiting on, the confirmation, from the auditors, just to make sure that that's where we will be depositing that money. And again, if that's the case, it's good for us because it's unrestricted, on the way that we can spend it.
Any further discussion?
No.
Well, we won't say anything. We have a motion on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcho?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Mr. Bering?
Yes, item N, discussion action on the approval of the revision of the district annual expenditure budget for fiscal year 2023-24. Let's get a motion on the floor.
I move to approve.
Is there a second, Mr. Smith?
Second.
All right, he's already given his presentation. You had a question.
I was just gonna ask if you had a brief summary of, of the budget overall.
Yes.
Make it brief.
Yes, as you remember, we adopted the budget back in July. And again, the main reason for the revision is the loss of enrollment. Of course, we need to reflect that and adjust our budget. As Mrs. Cox was informing, we've been, losing kids. So you have a picture of when we adopted the budget back in July. We adopted at an ADM of 3,584.73 kids. Now the revision needs to be the latest report that the ADE has, which is 3,488.82. That's roughly 95, almost 96 students overall. But like I said, the different weights is different amounts. And that reflects roughly $750,591 that we will have to adjust the budget. Now, what the revision also does is it allows me to have all of the information once we close the books in September. One thing that helped us tremendously was the carryover. So again, like I said, the loss of funding and enrollment was $750,591. But with closing all of the POs and closing expenditures and everything, closing the year, we ended up with $860,000 more than what we predicted on the carryover. So that's covering the loss of funding because of enrollment. So now the budget increases a little bit because of that difference. But one of the things that I want the board to be aware of is that if we wouldn't have that carryover, then we would have to be having a different conversation. And like I told you before, I'm not that concerned a lot about this school year and finishing up the year. We're gonna have another budget revision probably February, March, that is gonna also reflect, hopefully not, more, enrollment loss. But that's the reality we have now. We're gonna have to start planning for next year, and see, what are the areas that we're gonna be looking at to potentially not, cutting, some kind of plan for next year. Right now, we already informed principals and supervisors and directors to be, conservative with the budget. As it is, they're kind of struggling with the budget because everything is more expensive now, and they have the same budget as last year. But again, it's one of those things that we're gonna have to start looking at if things get worse, which I'm hoping they don't by February or March. But implement different strategies about closing expenditures, hiring freeze, not hiring people that is not necessary to finish up the year, things like that. Most likely, the state is gonna give us 2% again, like they've done before, because that's the maximum they can give, according to that law from 1980s that they haven't changed, but that's a different conversation. So again, this revision is just showing that loss of enrollment, but also increasing the funding because of the carryover we have. We've been very lucky about always having carryover and being able to do those things. Like Mr. Brain asked before, what will that be for next year? Talking about raises and what are we gonna do, for our employees. Again, I'm hoping that at least that too, if depending how we close the school year, then maybe a 3% for certified, and then maybe 50 cents to 75 cents to classified. But again, these are just preliminary numbers that I'm just working with, kind of like looking at next school year. We're hoping to come out with, strategies about marketing our district and see if we can, retain or attract students for next school year. But once around February, when we have projected numbers for enrollment, then we can sit down and talk about the plan for next school year. Again, like I said, it's just we're good for this school year to finish up because of that reason that we had enough carryover. Do you have any specific questions, concerns?
Mr. Smith?
No, I don't.
Mitch, you have any more?
Well, it's always the next step, and then the 2024, 2025 might be lean for us. I don't expect carryover, as you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But let's keep our fingers crossed that we don't have to go that direction.
Yeah, and if I may add, I know there's a lot of talk, state level, about increases for teachers. They still haven't come out with an actual proposal that says, okay, yes, they said we have the money, yes, but is it gonna be a one-time? Is it gonna be sustainable? Is it something you're gonna give us every year? Because if it's a one-time, yes, of course, once we get it, we'll give it out as a one-time payout, but it's not, that is something that is not gonna be able to put on the salary schedule because it's not gonna be sustainable. It will be nice to have, of course, but we'll see once we have more information on that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mitch.
No, that's fine, thank you.
Sure. That fear we have of all these the lost students, are you discussing with your building principals the ripple effect that's gonna have on class sizes, that you're gonna have, much as you hate to mention it, but you guys may be looking at the smaller the classes, the the loss of students, that you might have to be looking at some staff reduction. I mean, that's a reality, and it's not only here, it's everywhere.
Correct.
I forget what the school district was, I think it was in Phoenix, I'm not sure, where they already notified, I don't know how many teachers, that they were gonna be letting them go because of the loss of students. So, it's a reality, and it's something that it's gonna be a hard thing to deal with, but are you discussing that with your staff so that they know? Because before you answer, we, as always, are always very sensitive about salary.
Mhm.
And we always wanna give as much as we possibly can and still be, solvent and
Correct.
be able to pay our bills and everything. But that's the other thing, we wanna make sure that you, and I know with the blessing of the superintendent, you always look at as much as possible, because whatever you come back with, if it's not, this board, if it's reasonable, I'm sure we'll go along with it,
Mhm.
because we want to. But are you looking at the reality of those things? Go ahead.
Yes, we are, and when we haven't gone to the extent of telling our principals, look, this is what it may mean in the short future, but we are looking at our numbers. Just today, Denise, Mrs. Cox, Mr. Soto and I met, and in looking at our current class sizes, and like Mr. Soto says, some of our classrooms are below that 20 mark, so while we're losing kids, the class sizes right now, we haven't made any drastic changes, you know, especially in our efforts to keep our K second or K third class size at, you know, at a doable underneath 25, because that is what's best for kids and for their learning. However, with that being said, if push comes to shove, you know, this district and along every other district has had to look at class sizes and staff reduction. And so it is a conversation that we had, and we will be having that conversation with our admin. And Mrs. Cox has met with the salary committee, and they're very well aware of the declined enrollment and how it affects the budget. And so for now, we think we can finish off strong with the class sizes that we have. We don't want to interrupt that, but if there's a drastic change, let's say come February, then we have to start looking at those and making those tough decisions. And other school districts right now are having discussions about closing schools because the decline in enrollment is everywhere, and letting go of staff. I think Peoria was.
Paradise Valley
Yeah,
is closing
Paradise
4
Valley.
schools.
It was Paradise Valley.
Well, it's
closing a few schools. Yeah,
because of that voucher program
Mhm.
and.
they're
we
being
know all
severely
that
affected.
empowerment.
So yes, we are having those
But
discussions.
you are on course with 3% right now is a threshold.
That's what I'm hoping,
I
correct.
just want to reinforce that. And you have no problem with finishing out this year, which has absolutely
Mm-hmm.
no bearing on that at all. It's next
Correct,
year.
it's next year.
So we want to stay with that at least 3%, right, members of the board? I mean, we want to do that at least, right? And I'm not gonna finish, because you know what the rest will be.
Yes.
You do more if you can.
Of course.
Because we want you to do all you can. What are you looking at for, did you mention classified? You mentioned it earlier. What are you looking at?
Around 50 cents or 75 cents. Last year was 75, if I remember correctly. And then we didn't have to do any adjustments because of the minimum wage increase, so we're good. You remember prior years, we had to do an adjustment in January because of that. So again, most likely it's probably gonna be the same, so I'll be probably shooting for the 75 cents, just to be on the safe side. But again, we'll see depending on the numbers.
Are you all caught up with the minimum wage and everything?
Correct.
Okay, any further discussion, members of the board? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elcha?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes,
Mr. Berring?
Yes, item O, discussion action on the approval of the preventative maintenance job description revision, Ms. Samaniego.
You have, our preventative maintenance is an existing job we have. We just made some changes, and so this person or this position, person in that position works in collaboration with the school administrators, and they are ensuring that our custodial staff is monitoring and doing, adhering to the expectations of our maintenance upkeep, cleanliness, and so you'll see the changes in red. They will also collaborate with the administrator in evaluating the custodial staff. And it's all just so that, you know, the principals are there on site. However, they're not, you know, looking at every nick and cranny when they're focusing on instruction, and our preventative maintenance is monitoring and doing these walkthroughs, and will be in communication and collaboration with our principals on site to monitor our custodial staff.
You've already administratively done
We-
that.
Yes,
but you
and
just
he's
want
been
to
doing,
make
yeah,
it
he's been
official.
doing it, and so we just wanted to make it a little bit more official.
Mr. Lindeman,
I move to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion regarding that?
No.
Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salchow?
Yes,
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes, information items, Ms. Samaniego.
We have early release and last day of quarter on Friday, December the 22nd. Again, winter break, no schools will be open from the 25th of December through Friday, January 5th. District office will close Monday, the 25th through January the 1st. And I believe, and then we're going to have our annual organizational meeting on the 2nd. Did we determine
Members
that-
of the board,
Would that be
is that okay? Just a
Yeah.
quick meeting?
Did we pick a time
Yeah,
for
sorry.
that?
Mr. Smith, is that okay?
Yes.
January 2nd. Ms. Salchow,
yes,
she's good on that number?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, so then we're set on that.
But we didn't pick a time yet.
No,
Okay.
It's not at 10:30?
it was, we were looking at 10:30, but we.
10:30? Okay, the second. All right, the item 5, executive session. The governing board may vote to convene into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03 subsection A, number 1, for the following personnel matter. Consideration of a certified teacher's request to be released from her fiscal year 2023-24 contract, and consideration of whether or not to waive liquidated damages. And B, consider a certified elementary school counselor's request to be released from his fiscal year 2023-24 contract, and consideration of whether or not to waive liquidated damages. I need a motion to do that.
I move to enter into executive session.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Salchow?
yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes. Okay, so we'll give them time to clear out, and then we'll just stay right here. Ms. Salchow, can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Very good. Yeah, good. All right.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure.
They're good now. I was talking with Marco on the way, because we had that issue with them. They're off right now, right? Can you hear Ms. Salchow? Because if I shut it down, I'll lose Ms. Salchow.
She can hear. She doesn't need the mic.
Oh, okay, let me shut it down.
6A, discussion action on the request of the release of the fiscal year 2023-24 contract submitted by Mrs. Lewis, certified teacher at RBMS. Ms. Amaniego.
It is our recommendation to release Mrs. Mahala Lewis from her contract, impose liquidated damages of $1,500 for breaking her contract, and a non-rehireable status.
I move to approve the recommendation of superintendent.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Smith. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes. Item B, discussion action on the request of the release of the fiscal year 2023-24 contract submitted by Mr. Armando Romero, certified elementary school counselor. Ms. Amaniego.
Okay, it's our recommendation to release Mr. Armando Romero of his elementary school counselor contract, imposing liquidated damages of $1,500 for breaking his contract and a rehireable status.
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation.
Is there a
Second.
second? By Mr. Smith.
Second. Yes.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Elchow?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.